Something unprecedented is happening in our nation. While federal agents have just launched a targeted immigration crackdown on the Somali community in Minneapolis, the largest enforcement move against that community in U.S. history, at the same time, over 1,000 miles away, a Somali elected official was just arrested on felony gun charges and caught in a residency scandal straight out of a third world playbook. None of that is a coincidence. Stick me to the very end of this video because we're going to find out how these two stories are really chapters of the same book. A book about how a failed state's culture collides with a feckless liberal establishment that's too afraid to say no, and a president and a people who have finally had enough. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you make sense of the madness as the far left desperately tries to stop the unstoppable rise of a new conservative age that you're making happen all over the world. So if you want a front row seat on how you're changing the world in ways you never even imagined, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. As many of you know, President Trump has ordered the deployment of a massive federal law enforcement operation specifically targeting Somali immigrants in Minneapolis and St. Paul, the largest Somali community in the entire United States. We're talking over 100 federal officers surging to the Twin Cities this week, armored vehicles, targeted raids, and a message that years of looking the other way are officially over. The raids were ordered in the wake of the fallout from what federal prosecutors are calling one of the largest welfare fraud waves in American history. And some of that stolen money may have ended up in the hands of a group called Al-Shabaab, an Al-Qaeda-linked terror group in Somalia. And it gets worse. Now, the fraud coming out of Minneapolis isn't just one scheme, it's an entire network. As it turns out, the $250 million stolen from child nutrition programs was just the tip of the iceberg. Federal authorities have uncovered housing stabilization fraud. They've uncovered autism services fraud. I mean, the list goes on and on. Federal prosecutors say these schemes have stolen billions, yes, that's billions with a B, billions of dollars from American taxpayers. Now, here's where this story takes an even wilder turn. While ICE agents are arresting people in Minneapolis, a Somali city councilor in Lewiston, Maine, a man by the name of Iman Osman, was just indicted on 2 felony counts for allegedly stealing firearms. And it gets even crazier. Osman, again, who's from Somalia, was already facing scrutiny for claiming to live at an address that was condemned and connected to a federal drug raid where agents seized 24 pounds of methamphetamine, cocaine, fentanyl, and firearms. And when the city clerk asked him to verify his address, his lawyer said he couldn't disclose his address because his life was in danger. He was getting death threats. But then when reporters checked in with the Lewiston Police Department, they found that there's absolutely no record whatsoever of any police report filed about any threats. So this Somali man won't even confirm where he lives, and yet he's about to be sworn into office in January. Now, these gun theft charges were filed on Monday, December 2nd, the same day that the Trump administration announced and began deploying over 100 ICE agents to Minneapolis, St. Paul to target Somali immigrants with final deportation orders. And these two back-to-back incidents have many noticing a broader pattern of alleged criminal behavior within Somali communities. And ironically, the recognition of that pattern is coming from none other, if you can believe it, than the New York Times, and from none other than a Somali-born professor. Dr. Ahmed Samatar, a professor at Macalester College and leading expert in Somali studies, he himself is Somali American. He's quoted in the New York Times making the claim that Somali refugees who arrived in the United States following their country's civil war came from an environment where, quote, and again, this is the professor, stealing from a dysfunctional and corrupt government was widespread. Pretty much describes Democrat governments right now in all of our cities. Christopher Rufo at the Manhattan Institute has also argued that many cultural patterns from Somalia, particularly clan networks, informal economies, and distrust and exploitation of state institutions, travel with diaspora communities and have shown up in Minnesota as well. And what's so key here is that it's not just the United States that's experiencing this. There's a significant population of Somalis in Norway, and Norwegian authorities have uncovered similar welfare fraud issues involving some of their Somali immigrants. By early 2017, Norwegian immigration authorities had 500 fraud cases under investigation, disproportionately involving Somali populations. And a recent Reuters investigation documented how welfare and international aid theft remains a daily reality in Somalia, with an entire ecosystem profiting from misappropriation involving camp owners, local officials, and aid workers. But then something absolutely astonishing happened. Perhaps the single most prominent member of the Somali community in this country was directly confronted on live television with all of this evidence of fraud and corruption, and you are not going to believe how she responded. Wait until you see this. But first, you know that stubborn ache that never quite goes away? You know, the one that ice, heat, or pain pills barely touch? What if you could target it at the cellular level instead of just numbing it? Well, that's exactly what TheraBlue was designed to do. TheraBlue is a next-generation pain-relieving peptide gel that works deeper than the skin surface. Powered by aqua molecular delivery technology, it delivers peptides and botanicals directly into muscle tissue for legit lasting relief. Its hero ingredient is a copper peptide that promotes collagen synthesis, reduces inflammation, and helps accelerate repair. NAD Plus restores cellular energy to aid recovery, while methylene blue protects your mitochondria and supports endurance. Natural extracts like MSM, turmeric, white willow bark, arnica, and ginger soothe inflammation, while menthol, camphor, and eucalyptus oil deliver instant cooling relief. It absorbs fast and leaves your skin feeling refreshed. Apply a thin layer, massage until absorbed, and let your body experience lasting recovery. Don't keep living in pain. Click on that link below and get 15% off your order by visiting twc.health/Turley and using code Turley to move freely again with TheraBlue. Click on that link below right now. The ultra-repulsive Ilhan Omar was just on CNN and was directly confronted with the scandals and fraud ravaging the Somali community, and you won't believe how she responded.
Can you shed any light on why the fraud got so out of control in Minnesota?
I think what happened is that, you know, when you have these kind of new programs that are designed to help people, you're oftentimes relying on third parties to be able to facilitate. And I just think that a lot of the COVID programs that were set up, they were set up so quickly that a lot of the guardrails did not get created.
So nearly 60 people have been convicted in this scheme that stole over $1 billion meant to feed children. It's part of this wider aid stealing pattern that even a Somalian professor argues is part of their culture. And Omar's response was to focus on program design flaws rather than the flaws of the people who committed the actual crimes. I mean, it's textbook deflection. But unfortunately, it's just par for the course for Omar and for the identity politics that predominate the modern-day Democrat Party. Here's what's really at stake. Minnesota is approximately 84,000 people Somali descent. Most came as refugees starting in the 1990s, fleeing civil war. Horrible civil war, no question. And America welcomed them with open arms. Housing assistance, welfare programs, educational opportunities. You paid for all of that. And how did at least some of these Somalis repay that generosity? Well, as it turns out, by allegedly defrauding the system for billions and potentially funding terrorism abroad. Now, of course, not all Somalis, obviously. I guess we're living in a time where we have to say that, right? But enough that federal prosecutors are now calling Minnesota a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity that just engaged in one of the worst welfare frauds in U.S. history, and Somalian community is at the center of it. And in Maine, Somali communities have grown so fast in cities like Lewiston and Portland that they now make up 15% of some local populations. They're winning elections. They're sitting on school boards. They're making decisions about America's children's education. And at least one of them is now facing felony charges for stealing guns while living at a condemned drug house. Now, there's an old saying that's becoming somewhat axiomatic here. Import the third world and you import third world problems. Import the third world and you import third world problems. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here. And rather than doing the responsible thing and holding their community accountable, Democrat leaders are making excuses, they're deflecting, and now they're playing the victim card. The good news is that the Trump administration isn't backing down. More raids are coming, more deportations, and more accountability for politicians who let this happen. Because if Minnesota is any indication, the problem isn't just illegal immigration. It's a complete failure of leadership that prioritized political correctness over protecting American citizens, and particularly our tax dollars. And that failure ends now. So what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments section below. I want to hear what you're the ones changing the world. I want to hear what you have to say. And as always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button for breaking news and analysis you're not going to hear anywhere else. Love you guys. God bless. If you love seeing faith, family, and freedom winning again, you'll love Turley Clips. These are short, uplifting highlights from our show filled with stories of renewal, courage, and hope that prove a new conservative age is rising every single day. Subscribe to Turley Clips today and stay inspired, encouraged, and connected to a movement that's building a brighter future.